Your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for a Light and Fit remix. Like a crunchy storm of graham cookies, caramel pearls, and dark chocolate, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 3 Light and Fit remix varieties with craveable flavors and up to 120 calories and 10 grams of protein per 4.5-ounce serving. See remixyogurt.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome. This is the Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Networks. Here we talk news, politics, history, music, style, and of course, food. Today we're going to do something a little different. I always get a lot of complaints that we don't get enough of your calls and questions in, so we're going to try to dedicate virtually all of today's 2-hour program to your calls and your questions. That number, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222, or alternatively, stone@stonezone.com. You can reach us at either one of those. We prefer to hear from you by phone. Again, 800-848-9222. First of all, I want to congratulate my colleague at 77 WABC, Sid Rosenberg, for his appointment by President Donald Trump to the United States Holocaust Memorial Commission. This is a great honor, but then Sid is a stout defender of Israel and the United States, and I think this is a singularly deserved honor. So congratulations to my colleague, Sid Rosenberg. President Donald Trump spoke to the National Day of Prayer celebration yesterday. I first heard his comments on the Larry Kudlow show yesterday. I really thought it was worth replaying some of them. Listen to President Trump.
Today, as the American people turn to God in prayer, we continue a tradition older than our independence itself. Nearly 250 years ago, on June 12, 1775, the Continental Congress appointed a day of fasting and prayer so that Americans fighting for their liberty could seek the help of the Almighty. And when you look at that, June 12th, 1775, so we have a very, very special day coming up.
I really do think that prior to the events in Butler, Pennsylvania, the president spoke very little about his faith. He considered it a private matter. In fact, pastors and priests and other clerics would strongly suggest to me that the president should talk more about his faith. I also believe, speaking to him after he narrowly averted death in Butler, Pennsylvania, he did believe that he was saved by the hand of God. He does believe that he now has God's protection, the armor of God, and he believes that his life was spared for a very specific purpose, that being to make America great again. Yesterday, the president posted a graphic on his social media of him in the Pope's vestments. He was trolling, as you might imagine. It got a very, very mixed reaction. One Catholic said it was offensive. But then the next respondee said it doesn't offend you because you're a Catholic. It offends you because you have Trump derangement syndrome and you should get treated. Another Catholic said that it was blasphemous and disgusting. But yet another person said, as someone raised Catholic, the Catholic Church aiding in human trafficking offends me. This picture of Trump as Pope, a human being like you and I, makes me laugh. Yet another person said that the president's posting was outrageous. They pointed out their own Catholic beliefs, but a respondent said, not me, I'm a Catholic too, and I abhor some of the stuff that past popes and foreign and domestic cardinals have shoved at us, and we need a new pope who will go back to basics and make Catholicism great again. I saw the president's message, but I bet you liked Biden and his promulgation of abortion and using the FBI to spy on Catholics. Again, I'm commenting on the president's posting of an image of him in the Pope's garments, the Pope's vestments that he put online last night. Some folks cannot take a joke. Another person said, Catholic charities have enabled millions of illegal invaders into our country. Does that offend you? How about the child sex trafficking, the pedophilia, the Pope's approval of gay marriage? What kind of Catholic are you? Yet another Catholic would say this is seriously insulting and blasphemous, below the dignity of a president of the United States. Well, another Catholic said, well, as a Catholic, I have a sense of humor. Again, we're taking your calls at 800-848-9222. Let's go to the lines. Sal in Bayonne, New Jersey. Welcome to the Roger Stone Show. What's up?
Hello, Mr. Stone. Thank you for taking my call. Roger, I think we should do our best to get Greenland, because if we get Greenland, with all that money that we could get getting the natural resources from Greenland, we can fund building a beautiful southern border on a beautiful border wall on a southern border, protect us from the illegals. We can build a beautiful Iron Dome system to protect us from the missiles from Russia, from Iran, and from China. And we can also get the Panama Canal back. What do you think of that?
Well, first of all, I like your agenda. First of all, the real question is whether Greenland has a national security aspect of it. Should we own Greenland as a matter of national security? And then secondarily, I think the people of Greenland have to have some say in this. Denmark really is certainly not promulgating great economic growth or prosperity on Greenland. It's interesting because I haven't seen any reliable polling as to what the actual folks in Greenland think, but I think it does show you Trump's ability to think outside the box, kind of like Jefferson in the Louisiana Purchase, for example, or the later presidents who acquired Alaska and Hawaii. As for your agenda, I've favored a so-called Iron Dome. We used to call it the Strategic Defense Initiative under Reagan. Our critics called it Star Wars, but the Israelis have proven it can work, or that it can repel incoming intercontinental ballistic missiles, and I do think we need to build it. The one for the East Coast should be built at Fort Drum Air Force Base in upstate New York. It is the logical place for it. It's interesting that the Congress has appropriated the money, but the Biden administration has dragged its feet on getting it built. So I thank you very much for your question. This is the Roger Stone Show. Again, we're taking your questions at 800-848-9222 or stone@stonezone.com. You can send questions to either place. We welcome your questions, whether it's about history, politics, food, whatever it may be. And yes, I see we have a question here about my mother's recipe for Sunday gravy, also known as bolognese sauce. So if you're interested in that, you might want to grab a pen and paper, because I am going to go through the recipe once again. It is a great pleasure to be back with you and to have my voice back after a horrific bout of laryngitis. As I think many people know, it's going around. But today I'm going to try to jam in as many of your questions, whether you send them by call-in, by phone, or whether you send them by email. We appreciate your participation, and hopefully we can have a broad discussion of American politics, food, style, culture, or whatever else you want to talk about. You're tuned in to the Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Networks. And again, that number, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. We always end up with more questions than we have time. We're going to try to avoid that today. So please feel free to call in, and we'll get to as many of your questions as we possibly can. In the meantime, remember that we are kind of bipartisan here. Yeah, I'm a conservative, but I tell the stone cold truth. I criticize Republicans and Democrats, and I'm proud of it. I bring to the table a 50-year career in American politics, so I know of which I speak. Whatever you do, don't touch that dial, because we'll be right back.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
How does PwC take your company to the leading edge? They bring the sharpest minds in tech to your team, so you can bring the ideas that will transform your business. They're passionate about your industry, so you can walk into any room with every advantage. And they're with you every step of the way, so you can know you're headed in the right direction. PwC builds for what's next, so you can get there now. Get started at pwc.com/us/leading edge.
The Roger Stone Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. This is the Roger Stone Show, and we're taking your calls and questions. That number, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. Linda in New Jersey, you've been waiting the longest. Welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Speak to you. And I like Nixon, too, and I stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning to hear his resignation speech, in which he talked about his father and lemon trees. But anyway, going on, I would like to ask you about the Islamic Muslim Sharia that bought 400 acres in Texas, and they're planning to do an epic city. How can that happen on Governor Greg Abbott's time and state?
Well, it's a complicated question. I'm not an attorney, but of course, U.S. citizens can be Muslims, and they are able to purchase land. It is you would have to have some proof of some kind of illegal activity going on at that point to have any authority. I think a much greater problem at the moment, in all honesty, is the mass acquisition of prime ranch land, farmland, as well as airports, harbors, toll plazas, and so on by the communist Chinese. Now, that could be made illegal. Republicans have talked about it. President Trump has talked about it. Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida said he was going to do it. They did pass a bill here, but when you read the fine print, you learned that they only barred the acquisition of land in Florida if it was contiguous to a quote-unquote national security facility, whatever that means. So that doesn't do the trick. If you go to the U.S. Department of Agriculture's most recent report, they claim that there's only 380,000 acres nationwide that's under the control of the Communist Chinese. I happen to know for a fact there's more than 380,000 acres in Oklahoma alone. By the way, in Canada, you cannot buy land unless you are a Canadian national. So I believe here in the United States, we should make it illegal for the Communist Chinese and anybody fronting for them, because in China, everything belongs to the party. Everyone belongs to the state. I think we should make it illegal. But Linda, thank you so much for your call. Let's go to Mark in New Jersey. Mark, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Good afternoon, Mr. Stone. I have a question about the tax cuts. Are they going to take effect soon? And what does retroactive mean? Like, what does it apply to, the retroactive?
Well, I think at this point the tax cuts are still in place. So the tax cuts that were first passed under President Trump's first term expire this January. The question is, will they be renewed? Now, one of the great pieces of disinformation is that these are tax cuts for the rich. That's false. They are across the board, just as the tax cuts by Ronald Reagan were across the board, just as the tax cuts by John F. Kennedy were across the board. But the other great myth, and Robert Reich, who was the labor secretary under Bill Clinton, who actually went to high school with, He was at Katona, New York, at John Jay High School. He was wrong then. He's wrong now. The deficits and the inflation are not caused by reducing taxes on all Americans. The deficits and inflation are caused by massive spending. We have a spending problem in America. We do not have a problem with Americans being undertaxed. Let me put it the other way around, however. If a member of Congress, Republican or Democrat, does not support the extension of the Trump tax cuts, they will, in fact, be therefore supporting the largest single tax increase in American history. So while this tariff war is very important, while it is very important that we get to a level playing field with our trading partners, the president would prefer zero tariffs going both ways. That would really be his preference, but he will use the cudgel of increased tariffs to get our trading partners to negotiate honestly and give us a fair deal. But the tax cuts and tax reduction, and spending reduction are equally important if we're going to actually have a boom economy. You already see energy prices coming down. You already see interest rates coming down. You already see grocery prices coming down. The cost of a gallon of gasoline coming down. The president's plan actually has begun to work, but of course his critics do not want to admit that. Mark, thank you so much for your call. Here is an online question. This is Jack from Pittsburgh, who says, I heard you say last week, you don't believe that Sirhan, the man convicted of killing Senator Robert Kennedy, actually did it. Why do you say that? It's really very simple. They just released about 10,000 documents from the National Archive. There's another 50,000 documents that have not been released. That concerns me, but this is very simple. Sirhan, the man who was convicted of killing Kennedy, was always in front of Senator Kennedy. He got off 8 shots. All 8 shots are accounted for, and none of them hit Senator Kennedy. The coroner, Thomas Noguchi, one of the most famous coroners in the country, Los Angeles County coroner, said that Senator Robert Kennedy died of a gunshot wound at point-blank range to the left rear of his head, meaning that the barrel would have been right up against the back of his head. I believe that the actual killer is Thane Eugene Cesar, who was behind Kennedy, most definitely armed. He was a security guard who was hired roughly a week before the assassination by the Ambassador Hotel, and who immediately left his position to return to his native Philippines. There are other flaws, more than I can tell you in a minute, but that is why I believe that Sirhan is yet another patsy. By the way, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. agrees with my analysis. There's a great interview that he gave with Mike Tyson, of all people. It was up on YouTube, but unfortunately, you cannot see it. I'm hopeful that Tulsi Gabbard will demand additional releases of documents, videos, and audios regarding both the assassination of John F. Kennedy as well as the assassination of Senator Robert Kennedy and Dr. Martin Luther King, because, my friends, we haven't seen everything that we need to see. You're tuned in to The Roger Stone Show here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. We'll be right back.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
This episode is brought to you by GMC. GMC certified service technicians are factory trained to fit your vehicle with the tires specifically developed for it. And with our tire price match guarantee, you get the best fit for the best deal. Let us do the work. Available on select eligible tire brands and participating dealers only. Offer ends 12/31/2025. Terms apply. See dealer for complete details. Visit gmc.com/service to learn more.
The Roger Stone Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. This is the Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Networks, and we are taking your calls and questions. That number, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. Please call us now, whether it is politics, history, news, style, fashion. And yes, before the show is over, I'm going to give you my family recipe for Sunday gravy at popular request. Some people call it bolognese sauce, but we are going to get to that. So if you want to grab a pen and paper, now would be an excellent time. Here's a question from Victor in Chicago, who said, I was very surprised to read that you were an advocate for the early black radical Marcus Garvey. How do you explain that? Well, first of all, Victor, thanks for your question, but I reject your characterization of Marcus Garvey. I first learned about Marcus Garvey when I was poking around in the basement of the Strand bookstore in Greenwich Village, and I found this dusty biography, and I learned all about Marcus Garvey. He was a pioneering Jamaican political leader, publisher, orator, who championed black pride and economic independence in the 1920s. He was the founder of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. He preached free enterprise, education, self-responsibility, and he was an advocate for Pan-Africanism, and he was a symbol of empowerment and unity to his people. I think he was a very great man, and I also think that he was framed by the FBI for tax evasion. He was tremendously successful. He owned, I think, 2 ocean liner companies as well as a variety of other businesses. I think he was unfairly framed. So starting in 2017, I urged President Donald Trump to give him a posthumous pardon. And I think I suggested that every year of Trump's first presidency. Then in the final months of Joe Biden's presidency, Biden went ahead and issued that posthumous pardon, one of the very few things that I agree with that Joe Biden did. Let's go back to the call board here. Mary in Connecticut, you've called in. Mary, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Yeah, hi, Roger. Love your show. You're amazing as always.
Thank you.
Love everything you do. You're just amazing. Just wanted to know very quickly, what is the story with this big, beautiful bill? Why are the Republicans dragging their feet? Now it's Memorial Day, then it's July 7th, and now it's July 7th, then it's July 4th, and then it's the end of this month, and then Johnson says one thing, and then says another thing. And then are they going to need 60 votes in the Senate? Because if they do, they can't get it passed.
Mary, you have to be a little more, be specific about which of the big, beautiful bills are we talking about?
The one for the tax cuts.
I see. Okay,
good. The one for the tax cuts as well as for the DOJ cuts, too.
Excellent question. Look, I think we have to recognize that our majority in the House is razor thin. And while many people criticize Speaker Johnson, I've criticized him myself some, but I must tell you, I really like him. I think he has a very difficult job. It's kind of like herding cats. Our problem are not the crazy left-wing Marxist socialist Democrats. We know where they stand. Our problem are the feckless, gutless, weak-kneed, lily-livered, white wine swilling, brie cheese eating country club Republicans who don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to do anything controversial. What they want to do is, well, get reelected. For those Republicans who are already saying, oh, we're going to lose the 2026 elections, I don't concede that, not for a moment. But I do think we have to be more aggressive. I pointed out, for example, that in Florida's 14th district, where Kathy Castor, the daughter of a former congressman, defeated former retired Navy Commander Rocky Rockford, there were 54,000 mail-in ballots cast. But when you go look at the registration forms for those voters, they have neither a birth date nor do they have a social security number. when Rockford challenged that election in the House Administration Committee, which is why, by the way, that is the final arbiter of who was elected, not the state of Florida, but the House itself, the House majority itself. The House Administration Committee turned down his challenge. In my opinion, Rockford should have been seated. There's a substantial evidence that in 4 congressional districts in Orange County, California, more people voted than are registered to vote. I think there is the basis, therefore, to overturn what I think were fraudulent elections. The Republicans have to be much more aggressive, but I also believe that between his fight over tariffs, ultimately we will pass this tax reduction, the extension of this tax reduction, and these spending cuts, that we will have a strong economy. It's already strong and growing stronger by the 2026 elections. There's nothing wrong with the Republicans that some cojones could not solve. Thank you so much for your question, Mary. Clayton, you're calling in from Kansas. I used to work for the senator from Kansas, Robert J. Dole. Great man, would have been a great president. What's on your mind, Clayton?
Yeah, I agree. And thank you, Roger, for taking my call. I just want to tell you that I appreciate everything you are doing for the country, the Republican Party, and the MAGA movement in general. Keep up the good fight, sir. The question I have for you is Senator Chuck Grassley months ago mentioned a Obama-created FBI task force dedicated directly to the Biden family. I believe this task force consists of 40-plus members. Sir, could you tell me what you know about that and what progress there is in talking to the rest of those informants?
Well, I don't know about that specifically. I do know that the House Oversight Committee, under the leadership of Congressman Comer, has produced most definitely hard evidence that during Joe Biden's time as vice president, that some of those funds that went to his brother and his son and other family members made their way to Joe. To me, that would be grounds for both, would have been grounds for impeachment. He no longer can be impeached. Certainly would be grounds for prosecution. The Supreme Court decision that said that presidents are immune from prosecution, that's true, but that's for acts committed during the time of their presidency. And I believe afterwards, but not when Joe was vice president. So I believe that he could be, frankly, I believe he should be prosecuted. On the other hand, I saw him at the Pope's funeral, and he looks even more frail than he was in the closing days of his presidency. Also thought it was interesting, those organizing the Pope's funeral suggested that the attendees, the gentlemen at least, wear dark suits, gray or black. Black suits should be reserved for waiters and chauffeurs, in my opinion. But President Trump was roundly criticized because he wore a navy blue suit. But when you pull back and looked at the larger crowd, you saw that a number of the dignitaries from numerous countries were wearing blue suits, that he was not the only one wearing a blue suit. So it is yet another example of Trump derangement syndrome. The president paid his respects in an appropriate way. And of course, as I said earlier, he has taken both a lot of laughs, but also a lot of derision over the image that he posted yesterday of himself in the Pope's vestment. On the other hand, if you see orange smoke arising from the Sistine Chapel, maybe they did elect him Pope and they're ready to make the Catholic Church great again. I've been a pretty strong critic of Pope Francis. We can talk about that in a little bit. In the meantime, we are still taking your calls at 800-848-9222. Clayton, thank you so much for your call. We're taking your calls here. You can do it by calling in, or you can go to Stone at stonezone.com, and we will take your questions there as well. We always get complaints that we are not getting to enough of the questions. That's why we try to dedicate more time to it today. We're going to get to as many of your questions as we can. If you're holding, we apologize for the wait, but The call board is lit up. We're going to get to as many of your questions as we possibly can. Once again, if you're just tuning in, this is The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Networks.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Chronic spontaneous urticaria, or chronic hives with no known cause. It's so unpredictable. It's like playing pinball. Itchy red bumps start on my arm, then my back, sometimes my legs. Hives come out of nowhere, and it comes and goes. But I just found out about a treatment option at treatmyhives.com. Take that, chronic hives. Learn more at treatmyhives.com.
Choosing a bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drink that's all flavor and just 100 calories? Easy. Choosing between creamy vanilla, double chocolate, and sea salt caramel flavors? A little harder. Try the delicious new Starbucks Frappuccino light drinks. Look for them wherever you buy groceries. Start with Starbucks coffee.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back in the Roger Stone Show, taking your calls at 800-848-9222. Debbie from Illinois, you've been waiting a long time. Debbie, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Hi, Roger. It's me, Debbie. I need to tell you something. I'm 70 minutes from Chicago. I was born in Chicago, lived in the south suburbs. There are illegals all over these towns. I don't care if the mayor or is Republican or Democrat, they don't do anything.
Debbie, thank you for your call. The mayor and the governor are both Democrats. J.B. Pritzker has done such a bang-up job as governor, where both taxes and crime are in the stratosphere, and they do have, as Debbie points out, a problem with violent illegal immigrants. He actually thinks he's running for president. I guess his campaign slogan would be, he'll do for America what he did for Illinois. Chicago, which under Mayor Richard J. Daley, not Richie Daley, his son, but Mayor Richard J. Daley, was actually known as the city that works. But little about Chicago works. But the crime problem and the illegal immigrant problem are not just in the cities, they're also in the suburbs. Tom Homan has been charged with the president with trying to deport as many illegals as possible. But as you know, a number of federal judges have overstepped their authority to try to stop the president from carrying out the mandate of the last election. What can be done about this? I think this week we have seen the first suggestion that the president could suspend habeas corpus, that portion of the Constitution which would give him the authority to act at time of national emergency. President Lincoln did this. President Ulysses S. Grant did this. President Franklin Roosevelt did this. The president's critics would howl, but I do think he has that constitutional authority. And ask anybody whose members of their family have been killed or raped by an illegal. We do have a national emergency, one that the American people elected the president to deal with. So I thank you very much for your question. Here's a question from Izzy in Cleveland. He says, oh, this is great. Hey, Stone, where's that crypto that I bought from you on Facebook? I haven't got it. Let's go through this again. I am not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. I am not on YouTube. I am on X, where you can find me at Roger J. Stone Jr., Roger J. Stone Jr. I have been banned on all those other platforms. Now, there are a bunch of Roger Stones. There's actually Roger Stoners on all those platforms, but they are not me, other than my verified profile at X, formerly known as Twitter. So, my friend, if you bought cryptocurrency or any other product from someone claiming to be me, that is not me. My lawyers complain about this. We complain to those social media platforms. They ignore you for a long time. Then finally, even in those instances in which the imposters are taken down, well, they pop up again a few days later. And then what they do is just they change your name slightly. So instead of Roger J. Stone Jr., you're Roger Z. Stone Jr. It's a fraud, and it frankly victimizes a lot of people, but don't go for it, folks. It is not me. Steve from Central New Jersey, you have a provocative question.
Hey, Roger. Really enjoyed the show. I wish I'd give you more time. Here's my question, all right? I heard you be critical of Governor Ron DeSantis, who most are calling America's best governor, even people in Florida. Don't you think, and I understand your reasons, I've listened to your reasons carefully, and you can explain them again. Don't you think, though, this would be better left, rather than break Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment, let's wait till 2028 and a possible primary matchup between Vice President J.D. Vance and the two people who would have been the nominees in 2016 and 2024 had Trump not been in the race. I'm talking about Texas Senator Ted Cruz and Governor DeSantis. Let that issue play out there, all right, and don't damage Governor DeSantis just in case. What do you say about that?
I have a couple problems with it. First of all, I live in Florida, obviously. I argue with the idea that he's the best governor in the country. If you look at our insurance rates, if you look at our utility rates, if you look at the $1.5 billion in tax increases we've had, if you look at the way they have destroyed the transparency of government. We used to have very strict sunshine laws so that the average taxpayer could find out anything about how their funds were being spent. I'll spare you the backstory about the fact that Ron DeSantis was an undistinguished, unknown congressman running in single digits in the race for governor and having trouble raising money or getting attention until Donald Trump generously elected to buck the Republican establishment in Florida and endorse Ron DeSantis for governor. That catapulted DeSantis to the nomination, and then President Trump himself had to change his schedule to return to Florida 3 times in the closing 2 weeks of the 2018 campaign to drag Ron DeSantis over the finish line. It is not just that Ron DeSantis then betrayed him by challenging Trump, who I think had the right to try to make a comeback, but also, if you look at the end of that campaign, the rhetoric, the attacks on the man who made him got particularly virulent and personal. Now we have a scandal here. It is a real scandal where, as the Miami Herald editorial board said this week, it appears that the governor and his wife took $10 million in Medicaid funds that were supposed to be used for health care for the elderly, the poor, and the disabled, and funneled it to a political committee. By the way, the governor cannot run for another term. He's constitutionally prohibited. He could run for the open Senate seat in 2026. He appointed the Attorney General of the state, who's a particularly weak candidate, to fill the seat of Marco Rubio. He could still run for that seat, or he could run for president in 2028. I don't see him being a viable candidate, but it's a free country, and you're right, anybody can run. In the end, the Republican primary voters, the Republican voters will make this decision, but it's a fair question, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to give you my reasons. And there they are. You're tuning in to the Roger Stone Show here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. We're taking your questions at 800-848-9222. We're also taking some email questions at stonezone@stonezone.com. We prefer you call in. We'll take as many of your calls as we possibly can. But please, again, if you're waiting patiently, we'll get to as many of your calls as we possibly can. Whatever you do, don't touch that dial, because we'll be right back.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Summer's heating up, but the savings are cooling off. It's your last chance to shop Blinds.com's Memorial Day mega deals. Blinds.com invented a better way to shop for window treatments, completely online with upfront pricing, no showroom markups, no salespeople in your home. Choose from classic shutters to outdoor shades and more, all backed by our 100% satisfaction guarantee. It's your last chance to shop Blinds.com's Memorial Day mega deals. Save up to 50% with minimum purchase, plus a free measure. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. You're tuned in to the Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Networks, and we're taking your questions at 800-848-9222, whether it is about politics, history, news, food, fashion, style. We're open to all comers. We urge you to call in. Judith in Brooklyn, you've been waiting a long time. Welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you. Thank you, Roger. I want to tell you something. This drives me crazy. There should be a legal changes regarding politicians like Jeffries or Adam Schiff, where they lie through their teeth and they have immunity. They actually have immunity. Like Jeffries the other day says, Trump wants to take away Social Security. He knows he's lying, and there's nothing you can do about it. So if they would do something where he is penalized, and also, Roger, I want to talk about these media journalists and TV commentators. They, too, should be held accountable. They're allowed to lie. They get away with it. Look at the Charlottesville lie. That was a huge lie. They take things out of context. They don't show everything, and they lie to the public, and something should be done. Well, I remember when President Trump came out and he said, some Mexicans. And I'm reading in the papers, and they said all Mexicans. There's a big deal difference. Why can't they quote him correctly? And if not, they should be penalized. Something should be done legally. It's. What do you think, Roger?
Judith, I think you raised two excellent questions. Members of Congress enjoy immunity for their comments under the debate clause of the U.S. Congress. Now, to my view, that should be limited to things they actually say either on the floor of Congress or in a congressional hearing or in the congressional record. But when they are outside of Congress and they defame people, such as Adam Schiff, who's defamed me, or Jamie Raskin, who's defamed me, they ought to be suable. Although under U.S. law, I'm a public figure, and therefore the barrier under the New York Times versus Sullivan Supreme Court decision sadly says you can say just about anything you want about a public figure, whether it's true or untrue, and it's virtually impossible to sue them. This is equally true of the media. These media organizations are epically dishonest. Just this past week, for example, ABC reported that the 18 intelligence agencies whose activities are coordinated by the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, had all reached the conclusion that there was no connection between the terrorist gangs like MS-13 or Trencha Agua and the Venezuelan government. The problem with that story is it was 100% false. I know this because Tulsi Gabbard told me that herself, yet ABC published it as if it is a fact. It is the reason why people are no longer watching CNN, they're no longer watching MSNBC, they're no longer watching the three major broadcast networks, and why more people are going to the internet and to outlets like 77 WABC and others for diversity of opinion and the real, not fake news. In Britain, the standards for defamation are much lower. It's much easier to hold these people to account, but unfortunately, politicians are allowed to lie and get behind it. For example, you've listed some of the worst, but Hakeem Jeffries, for example, says in a tweet, Roger Stone traded his pardon with Donald Trump for his silence about Trump's crimes. That is categorically false. There's no evidence to prove that whatsoever. By the way, Hillary Clinton said it, Adam Schiff said it, Jerry Nadler said it. It's false. It is demonstrably false, but I have no legal recourse other than to continue to correct the public record, and that is exactly what I'm doing. Thank you very much for your call. Let's see. Larry, calling in from Brooklyn. You've been waiting for a bit. Larry, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Thanks a lot, Roger. Recently, the New York Times is being criticized for running an op-ed letter equating Trump with Hitler around the time of Holocaust Remembrance Day. A couple of weeks ago, the magazine New Yorker had a
cartoon on its cover showing Trump acting like Hitler in the Charlie Chaplin scene in the movie The Great Dictator, where Charlie Chaplin, a great dancer, dances around with a globe representing the world, and the New Yorker magazine has Trump ruining the world, and then sitting down with a dumb grin on his face. And the New Yorker magazine does this around the time of Holocaust Remembrance Day. I think what the New Yorker magazine did is worse. New York Times ran an op-ed letter from a comedian whose first name, I don't know what his first or last name is, from a comedian. New Yorker magazine was worse a couple of weeks ago.
It is disgusting, but unfortunately, once again, under the First Amendment, people are able to make these outrageous attacks. What's interesting, of course, is that the American people rejected it in the last election, despite the enormous power of the establishment media, the legacy media outlets like the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, ABC, NBC, CBS, the power of CNN, MSNBC, now diminishing. The American people saw through it. In fact, I would argue that Kamala Harris had no platform at all. No plan for job creation, no plan to deal with inflation, no solution to our open border and the crime and drug epidemic that open borders was causing. Her entire campaign was wrapped up in, well, Donald Trump is Hitler, and if you're voting for him, you're a Nazi. The American people saw through that. I think they see through this as well. But Larry, I appreciate your question. Here is Ann from Lansing asks me, Michigan Democrat Shri Thanadar filed ridiculous articles of impeachment against President Trump. What is with this guy? Look, this guy is $800,000 in debt in his campaign fund. He also has a rather sordid history. He ran some kind of a medical lab where I think he tortured animals, and he literally abandoned 118 beagle pups without food or water. They had to be rescued. When I saw this guy, I thought this was like a Saturday Night Live skit. He was so unreal. I noticed that the three major Democrats who had co-sponsored his articles of impeachment have now withdrawn their co-sponsorship. But as my friend Laura Loomer said, don't be surprised if the Democrats introduce articles of impeachment at the beginning of every session. It's part of their PR campaign. They don't have the votes. Trump has done nothing to merit impeachment. But you remember Congressman Al Green from Texas, not the singer Al Green, the Congressman Al Green. He had to be removed from the House chamber because he was shaking his cane and yelling at Trump during the State of the Union. He introduced articles of impeachment. It's a PR stunt, but it's also designed to raise campaign money for their coffers. Ann from Lansing, thank you very much for your question. Folks, you're still tuned in to the Roger Stone Show right here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. Our number, because we're taking your calls, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. We're still going to try to get to as many of your questions as we possibly can. So whatever you do, don't touch that dial, because you'll be right back in the Roger Stone Show.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Networks, and we are taking your questions at 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. Unlike past shows, we're trying to take as many of your questions as we possibly can. JW in Westchester, you've been waiting quite a while. Welcome to the Roger Stone Show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Roger. Thanks for taking my call. I have two comments/questions. They're both of national security. The first one is during the Biden administration, they were draining the emergency oil reserves, And I'm just wondering if that's a priority now in the Trump administration to get ourselves back to where we should be and maybe beyond.
The Biden administration, as I recall, dipped into the National Petroleum Reserve, draining it by about 180,000 barrels, which they said was to aid the war effort in Ukraine. So it brought the reserve down to one of the lowest levels in the country. Since that time, under Trump, it has been slowly being replenished. It now stands still below its peak capacity, about 394 million barrels. This despite the fact that we're still at beneath historic levels. The government claims that we have enough for a national emergency. As the cost of oil drops, the reserve is based on the system continues to be replenished. But today, as of April 2025, got kind of a mixed picture. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve is at 398 million barrels. While it reflects progress in replenishing, it still remains below the historical high. And this is something the administration has prioritized. So we are slowly building our way back. You had another question.
Yeah, that's great news. Number two is, there's a popular saying that the defense is a good offense. And I think the Trump administration is playing amazing offense. But this keeps me up at night, and I'm like, wait a minute. All of these rogue federal judges, these are defense complaints where they're shopping for the right judge to give them a favorable judgment. Why doesn't, well, here's my thought. Why doesn't the Trump administration play defense and say, let's just take transgender, men and girl sports and boys and girls sports, take that and put together a defense against that, and then go shop for a judge. That's my idea. And for all of these issues, I think you could be on the defense. It's like, you got illegal immigrants, and it's like, well, the American people could say, we're defending our country and shop for a judge. I don't know. Thoughts?
Well, I'm not an attorney. I follow Mike Davis at the Article 3 project. That's the Roman numerals 3, who's actually more articulate on this than I do. On questions of immigration, where I argue that you actually do have a legitimate national emergency, I think the president does have the authority to suspend habeas corpus on issues like their desire to continue to plague our military with the DEI. You have a legitimate problem with these politically active judges. Traditionally, the judicial branch was supposed to be non-political, but I experienced firsthand how that's not true. I don't know the answer, other than to say the president has actually done surprisingly well with the Supreme Court. I think he may regret some of his appointees now, but in the end, these things have no other choice to either be fought out in the courts and by taking these questions to the highest court. They clearly are overstepping their authority because the President of the United States has the executive authority to run both our foreign and domestic policy, and they are clearly interfering with that. I thank you, though, for your question. Bill from right here at West Palm Beach asks, do you actually think that President Trump can get himself included to Mount Rushmore? I love this idea. I met with some guys late last week who have a campaign. It's called the One More for Rushmore campaign. It would take an act of Congress, but they are going to run a campaign to to lobby the Congress to pass legislation. Now, those who say, and there are some who say that Mount Rushmore is so fragile that trying to add the visage of Donald Trump to Mount Rushmore would endanger the other presidents who are up there. The truth is the technology today, the structural and construction technology is so advanced from the time that Mount Rushmore was built that you could very easily add President Donald Trump. I'm going to sign this petition as soon as it gets posted. I think it is a great idea. The president, I think, likes this idea as well. Again, you're tuned into the Roger Stone Show here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. I am getting to that recipe for Sunday gravy, also known to some as bolognese sauce. Seems to be a favorite. I have a couple questions for it here, requests for it here online. So grab yourself a pen and paper. You're going to want to write this down. We'll be right back with my mother's recipe, marron. This is the best sauce you've ever had in your life. You're going to want to get this. Whatever you do, don't touch that dial, folks, because we'll be right back to answer more of your questions.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. This is the Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Networks. We're taking your questions both by phone and online. That number, 800-848-9222. If you've been waiting in the queue, we apologize for that, but happy to say we've had a great response today. Here is a question from Mike in Dana Point. He says, the Kennedy supporters insist that if Robert Kennedy had lived, he would have won the 1968 election and defeated Richard Nixon. I saw that you disagreed with that. Please explain. Well, it's really pretty simple. I understand the supporters of Camelot believe that, but it's not correct. There's two pieces to this. Even though Robert F. Kennedy Sr. won the California Democrat primary in California the day that he was murdered, the Democrat National Convention in Atlantic City was under the Chicago was under the firm control of sitting President Lyndon Baines Johnson. Chicago Mayor Richard J. Daley would stick with LBJ and his preferred candidate, Vice President Hubert Humphrey, largely over the war in Vietnam. So I argue with the idea that Kennedy ultimately would have won the nomination in a controlled atmosphere with LBJ in the driver's seat. But the other more important part of this is those who say that Richard Nixon feared a rematch with Robert Kennedy after being defeated by a whisker by John F. Kennedy are wrong. In fact, Nixon savored the idea of a rematch with the Kennedys because in 1960, John F. Kennedy carried every deep southern state, Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, and Alabama, the old solid South. By 1968, our politics has changed dramatically since 1960. Robert Kennedy Sr., particularly as a critic of the war in Vietnam, could not have carried any southern state against Nixon, and therefore I think had there been a Nixon-Kennedy rematch, I actually believe he would have been defeated. Having spent time with President Nixon himself, I know that he actually savored a rematch. He wanted a rematch. He was very bitter about the tactics used against him in the 1960 campaign. I have great affection and respect for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I think that he is doing a great job as the secretary over at HHS, but I have to correct those followers of Camelot because it is essentially a myth. Let's go to the phone board. Let's see, Scott in the Bronx. You've waited a long time. What is your question?
Okay, it's more of a statement, but as you well know, that the immigration laws were changed radically in 1965 with the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1965, also known as the Hart-Steller Act. Now, it's certainly something I want to go into more depth in that I can't do it justice in a 2-minute phone call. But there's a book called The Culture of Critique that goes into the genesis of that law. It's by Kevin McDonald. That basically that it was a 40-year campaign between the 1924 law, the National Origins Act, and the 1965 Act, which dramatically opened up the borders to the Third World, choked off immigration from Europe, and essentially resulted in the demographic changes that we're contending with today. So it's even more so than illegal immigration. I think what needs to be addressed is the nature and the scale of legal immigration to the United States also needs to be reformed radically. One glaring example of that is the H-1B visa program that many corporate elites in Silicon Valley take advantage of to replace American skilled labor and the requisite wage levels that would be required for American skilled laborers in that industry with nationals mostly from India, but also Pakistan, China, etc., to work in high-tech fields, whether it's AI, information technology. And it's an abusive program, the H-1B visa program, because it's meant to ensure that industry has enough workers to meet shortfalls or shortages of trained workers in those fields. There's no shortage of trained workers in the United States who are American citizens who need to do those jobs. It's just that the corporate elites at places like Google, NVIDIA, you name it, they don't want to pay living wages to American workers. They want to undercut the wage levels of American workers who are trained at the same skill level as these H-1B visa holders. And mind you, all the H-1B visa holders are legal immigrants, not illegal. Sometimes they overstay their visas, but that's another story. But but my point being, once again, is that as much as that we need to rein in and reverse illegal immigration, I think that even more so, you need to look at the legal immigration coming into the United States post-1965 with the 1965 Act.
All right. Well, we appreciate your call, and I will check out that book that you mentioned. Thanks for calling us today on the Roger Stone Show. Always anxious to learn more than I already know. Here is a question from Alice in Biloxi, Mississippi. She says, you previously floated Tulsi Gabbard as a candidate for president in 2028. What do you see in Tulsi that makes her qualified to be the first woman commander-in-chief? Well, I am a big fan of Tulsi Gabbard. She actually said in an interview just this past week that she would certainly not rule out a future campaign for president. She is, as you may or may not know, a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve. She is a combat veteran serving with distinction in both Iraq and Kuwait. She's also a championship surfer and a crack shot. She was a 4-term member of Congress as a Democrat. But what impresses me the most is that she's a person of principle. They tried to get her to say certain things that she disagreed with to guarantee her confirmation by the U.S. Senate to the sensitive position she holds now. She refused to do that. I also think, however, in addition to her high standards and principles, that she has that elusive quality of charisma. Reagan had it, Trump has it, not every political figure has it, but in the modern age of modern communications, she definitely has it. Now, I actually haven't said she will definitely be elected in 2028. What I've said is that I believe that she will be the first woman president. I believe that. That could be in 2028, could be another year. She's only 43. I think she recently celebrated a birthday. So it is an excellent question, but in my opinion, she has the charisma, the principles, the record to go all the way. And I predict to you that she will be the first woman president, not necessarily in 2028, but possibly. Remains to be seen. I thank you nonetheless for your question. Let's see. Here is yet another question online. Do you think New York Attorney General Letitia James will be prosecuted for her mortgage fraud? Well, she, of course, has tried to deny that she is guilty of mortgage fraud. I invite you to go to whitecollarfraud.com, which is a terrific website by Sam Anta. He's an interesting character in himself. He was convicted in one of the largest security frauds in American history, paid his debts to society. He's reinvented himself as a forensic expert studying these documents. She can deny it through her lawyer or to the New York Times or the Albany Times Union all she wants. There are multiple examples of outright mortgage fraud that, well, you or I would definitely be prosecuted for. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. I note that the Federal Housing Finance Administration has sent a referral to the Justice Department. I don't know what they will do. I do know that that the Attorney General has other problems as well. I've raised the question of her campaign financing through Act Blue. I think there is demonstrably and ultimately will be documented a huge amount of campaign finance fraud. She was also sued in 2022 because her chief of staff sexually harassed or assaulted a woman employee. The appeals court has dismissed those claims against the Attorney General, but I'm told that that will be appealed, and that case is still very much alive. Actually going to be doing some interviews on it next week. This is interesting because, of course, it is Letitia James who said no person is above the law. Well, that would include you, and the Attorney General, without dispute, signed a sworn statement filed with the mortgage company in which she said in order to obtain the mortgage rate that she would move into a property in Virginia. So if she did move into that property, she would be ineligible to be New York Attorney General. And if she did not move into that property, she would be guilty of mortgage fraud. The claim that she filed a separate application, as she told the New York Times, well, if that's true, it's not notarized, it's not online. My opinion, it's not real. Again, there are not two standards of justice for Republicans and Democrats. A lot more to the story as it develops. We'll be covering it here on The Roger Stone Show. We thank you for your questions, and we're going to continue to take as many of them as we can. Again, the number 800-848-9222, 848-9222. Whatever you do, please don't touch that dial, because we'll be right back with more of your questions. And in the next segment, yes, my mother's epic recipe for Sunday gravy. We'll be right back.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back. It's the Roger Stone Show here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. All right, I've been promising it, and now I will deliver. At long last, my mother's, therefore my grandmother's recipe for Sunday gravy. So, let's see, Sirio in Philadelphia says, why do you call it gravy when it's sauce? This is a cultural thing. People who grew up in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area, some Italian Americans, also in Philadelphia, refer to it as sauce. Now, I know some people think that sauce has to be brown. Gravy has to be brown. Sunday gravy is a tradition in our home, although I will tell you tonight we're not having a Sunday gravy. We're having picadillo because my wife is a proud Cuban American, and she's already made that. If you don't know what picadillo is, it's kind of like chili, but it includes raisins and olives. You put it over white rice. It's amazing. But here we go. So let me explain this. You want a mixture of 1/3 ground beef, 1/3 ground veal. You may have to take out a mortgage for that, and 1/3 ground pork. Now, I get the uncased Italian sweet sausage, so you already have fennel, garlic, and pepper. If not, you can add those. But if you can find the uncased sausage, you take equal amounts. So let's say in this case, a pound of each. You need some diced onions. You need some minced garlic. Now, let me give you a hint. You want fresh garlic. Garlic in the jar, while it may be convenient, it lacks a certain punch. A garlic does not keep, even when it's packed in olive oil, so you want fresh garlic. You're going to need some spices as follows. But first thing you're going to do is to get some high-quality olive oil. Specifically, get the type of olive oil that is used for frying or sautéing. You can find it at quality grocery stores, any place. You want to sauté your diced onions. You want to do that until they are translucent. You always want to keep things on a low to medium heat. Above all, you do not want to burn your sauce. And above all, you really don't want to burn your garlic. Now you add the minced garlic, but keep the temperature low. If you burn the garlic or the onions, you have to throw it out and start over again. It cannot be, quote unquote, fixed. Once you have done that, you add the meat. Again, 1/3 beef, 1/3 pork, 1/3 veal, and you brown. Now you're going to add, in this case, 2.5 cans of San Marzano tomatoes. Now, again, San Marzano is not a brand of tomato. It is a style of tomato. It is all important that you use San Marzano tomatoes because, well, they are the best. And San Marzano tomatoes are sold by a number of different purveyors. They come from a very specific region of Italy where they are grown. Now, watch the can carefully because if it says San Marzano style tomatoes, that's a Fugazi and you're being ripped off. So you add the tomatoes and the juice from the tomatoes. I then add 1 can of high-quality tomato paste. And an equal amount of water. To that, I add basil, oregano, salt, and pepper to taste. I add the pepper and salt back when I'm sautéing the meat, but I go easy on the salt because you can always adjust it. If you oversalt, that can't be fixed. If you undersalt, that can obviously always be fixed. Now you cover that under low heat. It can cook for as long as 4 hours, but there you have it, the perfect Sunday gravy. Now, the type of pasta is crucial. I like rigatoni. Mrs. Stone prefers linguine or spaghetti, but I think a hearty sauce like that, you want a heavier pasta. But there it is, my own mother's Sunday gravy. If you insist on calling it bolognese sauce, that's perfectly all right with me. The key to it, once again, are the San Marzano tomatoes. Hope you had time to write it down. We love bringing you our family recipes every Sunday here. They're usually, as you know, a mix of Hungarian and Italian. Well, because I'm half Hungarian and half Italian. I'm Italian from the waist down, as we said. All right, we have a question on the board. He's been waiting a long time. Wiley in Texas, you have a question for us today.
Hi, Roger. My question is why has Congress not separated federal election day from state and local election day, since all the shenanigans take place at Tammany Hall?
Well, election law is generally set by the states, and that we don't want to federalize the elections. Had we done so under Biden and the Democrats, we would have a federal system that already locks in mail-in ballots, already locks in the machines. The reforms that we need are kind of obvious. The president laid them out in his executive order. We need to return to paper ballots. We need to have our elections on one day. If the French can count 38 million paper ballots on election day, then surely we can. Mail-in ballots are a relatively new phenomenon. They utilized the COVID-19 pandemic as a way to legitimize them, but prior to that, absentee ballots had to be for a specific reason, either that you were too sick or too disabled to get to the polls, or you had some legitimate work-related reason. Bill Barr, before he went soft, told I guess it was CNN and Wolf Blitzer, that mail-in ballots were an open invitation to election fraud. He is exactly right. We need, in my opinion, to do away with mail-in ballots, and we should have the election in one day. Also, I favor the use of a photo ID. If you need a photo ID to get on an airplane, if you need a photo ID to buy a pack of cigarettes, if you need a photo ID to qualify for welfare, then you should have a photo ID in order to vote. It's interesting that in this recent election in Wisconsin, when they put photo ID on the ballot, it won overwhelmingly in a constitutional amendment. At the same time, we're expected to believe that Democrats won control of the state Supreme Court. Not sure about that. Anyway, I want to thank you for joining us today on the Roger Stone Show here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. I particularly thank those who emailed in their questions as well as those who called in your questions. We're very proud of the show. We try to bring you a good mix of politics, news, history, style, and, of course, food. Thanks again, and until next Sunday, God bless you and Godspeed.
The Roger Stone Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.